This is Topic 1, the Crime Analysis Profession. Thanks for taking crime analysis this summer. You will have a sound file associated with almost every slide on each PowerPoint. For some of the longer chapters, this may not be the case. There will also be a longer podcast associated with each exam during the process of review right before. For example, the first quiz is due June 1st and will become available around May 27th. At that time, there will be a recorded podcast for that. Crime analysis is the systematic study of crime and disorder problems, as well as other police-related issues, including sociodemographic, spatial, and temporal factors, to assist the police in criminal apprehension, crime and disorder reduction, crime prevention, and program and policy evaluation. Many different definitions are currently in circulation for crime analysis, but some common components are supporting the mission of the police agency, utilizing systematic methods and information, and providing information to a range of audiences. Let's take a closer look at the components of the definition of crime analysis. First is study. Next is qualitative and quantitative data and methods, crime and disorder, sociodemographic information, the spatial nature of crime and police-related issues, along with the temporal nature of crime and police-related issues. Crime analysis is focused and systematic examination of data. It is not haphazard or anecdotal. It applies the techniques of social science data collection procedures, analytical methods, and statistical techniques. Crime analysis uses both qualitative and quantitative data and methods. By qualitative, we mean non-numerical data, and we're looking for the discovery of underlying meanings and patterns of relationships, like what we do in field research, observation, focus groups, and the like. By quantitative, we mean conducting statistics on numerical or categorical data, including frequencies, percentages, means, and rates. Crime analysis also analyzes information related to the nature of the incidents, offenders, and victims or targets. It's much more than just the examination of crime incidents. Crime analysts also look at the characteristics of individuals and groups, such as sex, race, income, age, and education. At the individual level, that means that crime analysts are equipped to search for and identify crime suspects. At a broader level, this means that analysts can help determine the characteristics of groups within areas that may be linked to crime and disorder problems. Because crime and disorder problems are not evenly distributed throughout a jurisdiction, it is important to look at visual displays of crime locations and their relationships to other events. Crime analysts use techniques to determine clusters of activity or hot spots, for example. Crime analysts also look at long-term trends over years and the seasonal nature of crime. But they also look at mid-length and short-term patterns, for example, days and times. For even in areas of concentrated criminal activity, certain times of the day and certain days of the week are important factors to look at. Let's now discuss some of the goals of crime analysis. One of the goals of crime analysis is to support the operations of a police department, to assist in criminal apprehension, to prevent crime through methods other than apprehension. And the final goal of crime analysis is also to assist with the evaluation of police efforts, For example, crime analysts can help determine whether a crime prevention program or initiative is successful or not. They can also examine whether the police organization or programs or initiatives that they are running are actually being effective and efficient. Next, let's look at the early history of crime analysis. The reason I have early in quotation marks is because we're only talking about less than 2 centuries in which governments have been interested in even looking at or measuring crime. And police departments aren't that old either. The first police department anywhere in the Western world was the London Metropolitan Police Department, established in 1829 by Sir Robert Peel. In the early 20th century, Americans such as August Vollmer and O.W. Wilson made contributions on this side of the Atlantic as well. Finally, in the 1960s and 70s, funding became available that set the stage for the establishment of crime analysis, along with the beginnings of environmental criminology, which we'll be studying later. In the 1980s, only a very small minority of departments had crime analysis units, and these were typically police officers that were reassigned to crime analysis. They were not professional crime analysts per se. In the 1990s, this began to change with the creation of the International Association of Crime Analysts, or the IACA. Also, in the 1990s, community policing evolved into other directions, such as problem-oriented policing, established by Herman Goldstein. There were also improvements in computer hardware and software that sped along advances such as crime mapping. Funding from the 1994 Violent Crime Control and Safe Streets Act also played a part, along with CompStat coming out of New York City. Now let's take a look at the early history of crime mapping. Crime mapping began with the so-called cartographic school of criminology in the 19th century in Europe, in which researchers looked at levels of crime summarized by different areas and regions and their relationship to sociological factors. This became possible as governments began to release data for the first time. In the United States, the early beginnings of crime mapping began with the Chicago School sociologists. They began to look at phenomena such as delinquency and how it was not evenly distributed across the city of Chicago. Since 1970, there have been significant improvements in technology that have allowed for more sophisticated crime mapping capabilities. In fact, crime mapping was advocated by then Vice President Al Gore in the mid-1990s. Government funding was allocated for police agencies to obtain crime mapping technology. Also, software programs developed specifically to assist with crime mapping began to be developed. In the last decade, crime analysis and crime mapping have evolved along similar but different paths. This is evidenced by their histories. Much of crime mapping began in an academic setting, while crime analysis began in more of a law enforcement environment. Also, the availability of funding, centers, and publications are somewhat different. Yet crime analysis has harnessed crime mapping as an important and, in fact, essential tool to perform their tasks. Crime analyst qualifications and job descriptions. You can go through the next few slides yourself and look at the different types of job descriptions and qualifications for different types of analysts. There will be no sound files associated with subsequent slides in this file.